Hello students, how are you? Hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to discuss the principles of layout and design part 2, that is the elements of design. In the previous module we discussed the principles of layout, newspaper layout, and we also discussed the various elements of a front page. Now in this module let's learn about the elements of design. The objectives: to introduce the students to the basic elements of design or art, how as designers they use these elements in different ways in their work. At the end of this module, the students will be able to list the different types of the elements and also differentiate and understand its importance and placement of these elements according to the principles of design. Let's begin. The most important fact about design is its visual composition, whether it's a print media or a new media. Visual look and the feel is very critical for the success of the design. To achieve that, a designer has to plan and execute a well-balanced visual composition for a design. All the visual and textual assets have to be organized properly and arranged in such a way that the overall design should make an impact. Selectively choosing photographs or illustrations can create an enormous visual impact for a design. It can add dimension, meaning, and a deeper level of understanding rather than a headline, paragraph, or a text. Designer also should adhere to the principles of design. A designer must make it a habit to prepare a thumbnail or a rough key sketches for a visual design before the final output. Layout, grid, typography are the crucial elements in setting the visual theme and mood of the design, whether it is for print media or a new media. Avocations of different typefaces are subliminal to most people, but designers will go to a greater length to ensure the selection and construction of these type complements the mood of the piece. Variety of typefaces and their qualities are very important for making a design effectively verbally as well as visually. Overall layout and grid provides a broader structure to the designing, bringing it's a kind of visual stability to a design in a newspaper or a magazine. Now let's see the different elements of a design or a visual design. The elements of visual designs are ingredients designers use to identify line, texture, shapes, space, type as tangible elements, size, color, value, and volume as conditional elements. The elements identified by Gatto, Porter, and Selleck in 2011 are point, line, shape, form, value, color, space, texture, and typeface. These are the 9 elements of visual design we are going to discuss in detail. Let me repeat again: point, line, shape, form, value, color, space, texture, and typeface. Let's see point. In geometry, a point is defined as an entity without length and breadth or an entity without any dimension. In graphic design, a point is represented in a form of a dot and it indicates a particular position. It is the end or a beginning of a line. Dot has physical dimension, which is a visual representation of an abstract concept known as point. And this point is a basic elements of design. Next one, line. Line is defined as a one-dimensional entity having a length but not breadth. But in graphic design, it is metaphorically defined as a line is a dot gone for a walk. That is, a line is a point in motion. We can also say that a line is a path of a moving dot. However, in graphic design, a line is depicted where it has length as well as breadth. A line can be thin or thick. It can have many variation in thinness or thickness. Thinness or thickness of line creates visual impact. A thin line appears heavy, whereas a thick line appears heavy, whereas a thin line appears lighter in a visual composition. Line can be of various types: straight, curved, zigzag, decorative, ornamental, vertical, horizontal, inclined, random, or showing free movement. Each type of the line will create a visual impact. If lines are grouped together, then they will create even more visual impact. Let's look into some of the types of lines. Straight horizontal lines creates a feeling of calmness. Horizontal line are stable. Vertical line appears to be dynamic and may also suggest upward mobility. Inclined lines are unstable but may also suggest growth or decay depending upon the context of the use. Curved lines create various type of rhythmic movement. Zigzag line create a feeling of harshness. Decorative and ornamental lines create an impact of tradition. In all the above case, thickness and thinness of lines will either increase the visual impact or reduce the impact. Now let's go to shape. A shape is a contour or a well-defined outline of a two-dimensional form. Shape is two-dimensional object made by lines and is broadly can be categorized into two types: geometric shapes and organic shapes. Geometric shapes are squares or circles, while organic shapes are irregular shapes. They also address concept of positive and negative space. Positive shapes are actual shapes and negative shapes are spaces between these positive shapes. A successful design is one that carefully balances both. Talking about positive and negative shapes, I will be discussing this in the other element called space, so we will be able to understand it better. Next, let's go to form. A form is a three-dimensional object which is not only has width and height but also has depth. The quality of shape is also decided by its surface and weight. As a basic element of composition, form is defined as a shape that is meaningful. A shape is just an outline, but when it is filled with colors, textures, or gradation, it becomes meaningful, as well as it creates an illusion of three dimensions. In such cases, a shape becomes a form. A form also becomes meaningful due to its position in the visual composition or its placement in the composition. Next is value. Value is basically the amount of light and dark in an artwork. It is an intensity of white in a color, also known as brightness and luminance. Value cannot do multiple things such as creating mood as well as to describe the depth of the object. Colors with lighter value are called high-keyed or pastel colors, while dark value colors are called low-key. Value is relatively darkness or lightness of a color hue in a relation to the grayscale. Basically, value defines artist's space. More you take care of these elements, more detailed and realistic your work will be. Then we'll go to color. Color is very important element of visual design that decides the mood of the design. Basically, to say color is a more expressive form of an element. Example, red conveys feelings such as passion, orange can be seen as energetic, yellow can show brightness, green feels freshness. However, it should be noted that different culture interpret meanings of colors differently. Color is a basic and the core attribute of visual perception, and therefore it is the most effective element of graphic design. Can you imagine a world made up of only black and white or gray shades? So here, knowing color theory helps you in choosing the right color combination. Color theory helps you to how to mix a color, and you can express your thoughts and ideas at a different level if you understand the combination of colors and the mixing of the colors. Colors are studied in physics, psychology, cultural studies, and many other disciplines of knowledge. In fine arts and graphic design, color is studied to understand its visual properties such as hue, luminosity, and value. This is colors, and this is the color wheel which I was talking about. Next is space. Space is a place where objects, both 2 and 3 dimensional object exist. Space has both in particular method, it is where no object is called either white space or negative space, and effective use of such space is important for making attractive and effective visual design. Here the space has a background, foreground. Space can be overlapping. You can use space, the concept of space, by using color change or of course using a different perspective. Here space is defined as an infinite expansion. It is also defined as a collection of points in 3 dimensions. However, in graphic design, space is defined in terms of visual representation in a composition. Using the other element of design such as lines, colors, forms, it is possible to create an illusion of 3-dimensional or volume or a 2-dimensional surfaces. Similarly, a physical space as well as conceptual space can be represented in a composition. Previously, I was talking about shapes. I told you about negative and positive shapes. Now let's see what is this space. This is the example of a positive and a negative space, and this is a famous example of Gestalt principle. Here it talks about illusion of a vase. When you look at this image, what do you see? The face or a vase. It is one of the frequent demonstration of a figure ground theory. What would you see when you look at the faces or vase illusion depends on whether you see the white space or the back space. When you look at the white space, you see the two profile of a face, but when you look at the black space, you see a vase. Next is texture. Texture is a quality of object's surface, and it could be, for example, rough or pattern. A visual texture is a characteristics of surface that creates an experience or a feeling of touch in a visual composition. Many a time, designer creates an illusion of a tactile experience. This is termed as stimulated texture or implied. Designers work with stimulated texture as well as real texture or both. When we run our fingers over a stone or a bark of a tree, we experience this tactile feeling. The tactile experience could be smooth or rough, and most of the time it is very difficult to express it in words. Designers create such a tactile experience through their design by using colors and any available material on a particular surface. Designers also try to generate the same effect or illusion of a same tactile feel by using colors alone. People appreciate designers' skill in creating such an experience or creating illusion. Textures can also help in creating and enhancing subtle feeling and mood. Here, when I'm talking about texture, every surface has a filtrate when you touch it. It can be smooth, rough, soft, or a spongy, and you can actually create these kind by painting, by putting shades or having different approaches to create that texture. These are some of the examples of texture. This is a bark, a rough surface. That way you can create this kind of texture on a surface of your design or whatever form of object are you, if you're working on it. Even if you're working on a newspaper or magazine, if you want to have a background with have a texture, you can use this method. Next is typeface. A typeface is a formal definition of alphabetical and numerical characters that are unified by consistent visual properties. There are 3 types of typefaces: serif, sans serif, and decorative. Sans serif typefaces are considered to be more legible, while serif typefaces are more readable. Legibility is defined as how easy it is to read short bursts of text such as headings, bullets, and signs, while readability is defined as how easy it is to read a lot of text, long or short. So if you see, most of the headlines and bullets uses sans serif, whereas text uses serif. Font size is an important factor which decides readability. So if you look at this is a serif font which has a decorative end, whereas sans serif do not have a decorative end. So to conclude, elements of designs are basically the building blocks used to create a work of art. It is a visual tool that an artist uses to create an artwork, and he uses different types of principles to place these elements, which we will be discussing in our next module. I hope you have understood this. Please read this, go through the slides again, go through this video again. If you have any doubts, please leave a message in your feedback column. Thank you.